entered our last lockdown,
Yep.
lockdown 5,
Yep.
at a time when we'd only had one donut day, effectively.
That's right.
Now that we have these cases that are a concern, potentially linked to these current cases, really going back pretty much until, like, during the time of that last lockdown, do you think that we exited that lockdown too early now that we're in another one?
No, there's no evidence to point to that at this point, Julie. If I look at, if we look at the trajectory of the last lockdown, we had, and my memory's a little bit faulty this time, I'm sure, but I think we had something like 14 days of no cases in the community. Over 14 days of no cases in the community. We didn't lift out of lockdown until we'd completed 8 or 9 days of no cases in the community. We had 7, 8, 9 days before we saw this first case crop up. So at this point in time, we don't see any obvious associations. It doesn't mean to say there aren't any linkages, but the linkages will be further back, and there will be ones that we hadn't at that point identified. So that's the work we're trying to do at this point in time. And I think it would have been very difficult for us to sit there. Bear in mind, we have this focus on getting control quickly, activating these short, sharp lockdowns at the very earliest sign of this Delta strain being out there. I think it's a test of the community support to wait for that long and to sit there on 0 cases and say, well, we're just being precautious.
Let me add to that, perhaps. Look, we haven't got links. There may be. We'll just have to see how that unfolds in coming days. But I wouldn't have fancied standing here for more than a week with each and every day no cases that had been in the community, keeping a lockdown on for another 7 or 8 or whatever. It would have been 9 days, whatever that. You can do the maths, but it was certainly a week or more, and we had well and truly a week or more where there were no cases in the community. I would just make the point for those listening at home, those watching at home, 0 is always the aim, but it's not 0 cases. It's 0 cases that were out and about, potentially infecting others. So a donut day, always terrific, but it's not necessarily. You can have 4 or 5 or even 20 cases, but if they were all tucked away from other people, isolating, no risk to public health, then they can't have given it to anybody else, and that's as good as a 0 day. We're some way off that, given the number of cases that we've got at the moment, but we're all working as hard as we can to drive it back down and drive it into ISO, if you like. So once we're locked down, because movement means infection, we've locked down quickly, we're finding these cases quickly, the mysteries are a concern to us, but we're all working as hard as we can to try and solve that puzzle and find where these cases have come from.